This episode of The Construction Record is brought to you by the Greater Toronto Sewer and Water Main Contractors Association. Clean water, our goal, our future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 84 of the Construction Record podcast. This is Vince Versace, National Managing Editor of the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce, joining you today. And with me is...
Digital Media Editor, Warren Frey.
And once again, this is one of our other pandemic chronicles, I guess, Warren, as we...
Sheltering in place, as per usual.
Exactly. We are definitely social distance between you and I, between DC and
that's for damn sure.
As we record this from our respective home studios. It's been quite the news cycle since the last time we spoke, but that's what we said the last time too, right? Covering COVID has kept us moving day to day, sometimes almost hour to hour, depending on the press conference. But here I wanted to start with, we will talk about some of our coverage and some of the stories we've been doing. But I wanted to start off with kind of a milestone historical moment that we're approaching here with the Daily Commercial News. As we record this today on Thursday, May 28th, for our 29th podcast, the Friday, May 29th Daily Commercial News print edition is going to be the last print edition of the DCN that's being issued. It's a big deal. We're reaching a milestone in which we're realizing our completely digital future, to put it that way. We've had a digital edition that accompanies our daily DCN for the last 6 years. So we've been in both mediums as far as having a digital version of the newspaper, plus the print version that's gone out to the public, to our subscribers. But now we're foregoing print altogether. As Warren can attest, and Russ, and our listeners and readers know, we did the exact same thing with the Journal of Commerce last year, last February. So that's actually, we ended a 108-year print run of the JOC last February, and when we took on our new digital future there. And here we are at the DCN after 93 years in print. We're going fully digital as well. For Warren and I guess we're two of the elder statesmen on our news team, our national news
paper
team.
guys, what I would have said.
Exactly. We are newspaper men. Started our careers with dark rooms, started our careers with using paste up, using very antiquated old word processing systems to get the news out.
When I went to see the Post, I saw the printer press. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh, exactly, right? It's this moment, so just for our listeners and for our readers on the DCN side, and our JOC readers and listeners can attest to this, this is not the end of our publication. It just means we're moving away from print. And as we saw with the JOC, and now I'm sure we're going to see it with the DCN, all you're going to see is growth on our end as far as these publications. It's not a decision we took lightly. We've been building towards this for years, quite frankly. It was a massive step to move the JOC to a strictly digital publication, and now to finish that two-step process with the DCN. It's a year ahead of time. I could probably say that with certainty.
Like
but
everything
the pandemic,
else, it's pushed things forward, yeah.
Exactly, Warren. And we were having these discussions. Like, in our two papers, I used to say to our two editorial boards, and when we meet every year, they've never been immune to the commercial pressures that other newspapers have faced. Yes, we're in the B2B world, the business-to-business world, but that didn't insulate us completely. So declining media advertising, declining circulation, but also the growth of digital has been a perfect storm. Throw in a pandemic, and even the DCN, the size of the DCN, which is a daily, it took a hit. So we had to make a decision as a leadership group what we were going to do. And we thought, you know what? Everybody else is going to be recalibrating as we get through this pandemic and come out the other side. We were going to do this anyways next year. Why not just do it now? And it's a bittersweet day. I can tell you with the DCN news team today, as we put together the pages, we've been working all week on design and to kind of give over those last pages to the press today. It was this hard moment. It was just like it reminded me of like last year when we did with the Journal of Commerce. It's hard, you know. Warren, you've seen this. We live in both worlds comfortably, you know what I mean, in our personal lives as well. But you and I talk about how do we read and consume our news, right?
I do it the same way. I think I've looked at a newspaper for a long time. If I'm at a hotel or an airport, and I'm not doing either of those right now, so.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I was thinking back, when was the last time I picked up newspapers? You know, and it's like, it's usually that when I've been traveling or when I'm at a hotel or when I've been out at there in Burnaby visiting the offices there. I'll pick up the local papers because my curiosity is, okay, what's in the local media? Yeah, I could see it online or on an app, but I wanted to feel those papers, you know. That's what I would do. And I do have subscriptions to magazines, so I still have print that comes to my house.
Yeah, I got a couple myself.
Exactly, but the actual newsprint, it's this moment, you know, that's we've been talking it out, you know, the last couple of days, and we know it's the inevitable change that had to happen, the inevitable evolution, but still hard to stomach at times.
Oh yeah, right? Of course, especially for old fogies such as ourselves. I'm sure the younger generation has no problem with this.
Yeah, exactly, and the beauty of it is, though, as we said, we saw the proof in the pudding, to use the term, with the Journal of Commerce. We had started turning the journal into a daily kind of website. We had moved one of the print editions into a newsletter edition before we went totally digital. We started to see that growth. And quite frankly, it's evident even now during the pandemic. We saw it with the DCN crowd. People consume the news in readily available nuggets, portions online. You know, they're not waiting for the print for their news. You know, they're waiting to see in our industry what the JOC and DCN are doing about that press conference that just happened 2 hours ago.
That's exactly, yeah.
You've seen this with you were the first in the front lines, your province there in BC, in dealing with the pandemic, right? And the industry reacting to that. You and Russ had to be hopping day to day, right? And as it slowly rolled across Canada and hit here, we had the same experience here in Ontario. It's like, how do we leverage our social media and our websites to get the news out? Because our readers, advertisers, and clients want to know, right? So I know I don't sound too happy about it right now, and I'm sure listeners are kind of sounding like I'm in pain, but
that's not entirely untrue, right? But that doesn't, you can't, kids got to leave home sometime.
Well, exactly, and some of people know the story, but some don't. Like for me, the connection to the DCN is a curious one. The DCN was in my life when I was a kid, and little did I know it until I started working at it. And my dad reminded me that while my dad had his construction crews building residential homes in Peterborough and Milton here in Ontario, what was that newspaper up in the lunchroom in the trailer? As he said to me, he's like, it was the Daily Commercial News, all right. So in a way, it's kind of funny how as I go through a journalism career, I come back to the DCN and kind of forgot that it was in my life back then. So it's that tangible holding of print that we won't have anymore. And I know a lot of our board members are sad about it, but they totally get it. Because how do the majority of them consume our news? On the website.
They've all got smartphones or websites, yeah.
Exactly. So just wanted to let our new listeners know that's kind of the big change that's happening here. So that last print edition is Friday, May 29th, the day this podcast comes out. So, and honestly, as I mentioned in my goodbye to print editorial for the DCN, just like I mentioned in the goodbye to print editorial for the JOC, this podcast is one of the shining examples of our future, which is now, right? This is a new way our news is being consumed and we share it. And I'm proud of it. Look, it's already become award-winning so quickly and being well sought and listened to. So, with that, I think I'll move on from the discussion of print overall, but wanted to share that with our listeners. But on your end, Warren, what's kind of percolating there that you've worked on that listeners should know about?
A couple of things. One thing that it's about to come out. It's about construction associations in Saskatchewan coming together because the food banks of Saskatchewan did an appeal for funds because of not the usual and also COVID-19, which is that they've said there's a lot of there's a big rise in response to that to using food banks. So Kelly Pantelick Construction Limited and Mary Pantelick of that family sort of spearheaded this thing where she kind of got the construction associations together to get them to go out and get donations. And I think they're aiming for $1 million, and they've gotten about half that, maybe a little bit less than that, of a whole $6 million that the food banks this is all the food banks of Saskatchewan are trying to get, and it's all to help out people. Because the way she put it was, well, we're a family business, and we regard anybody who's at our work camp as family, and they could catch this, and we already just want them to eat good, nutritious food. So wouldn't we want that for everybody else, right? And actually, Mark Cooper of the Saskatchewan Construction Association is on a board of a food bank, and he's of much the same mind. He's like, this is vitally important, and we should all do our part. So it's interesting to see them all mobilized together, and as he said, a bunch of competitors are just getting together and doing this thing.
All right. Well, and that's the thing. This type of mobilization is neat to see, right? It's kind of that part of the story arc, as we were saying, as we saw everything happening. So that's fabulous. That's really great. Yeah. So, and then anything else that's kind of big coming up?
It's interesting, and it's not entirely construction related, but it could be fairly soon. I did a story about a couple called Keisha Go and Jamie Hackens, and what they're doing. They're both from BCIT. Or they both went to BCIT here in town, and he's an engineer, she's an interior designer, and they're 3D printing like around the clock, basically, frames and plastic for masks and face shields, and they've been giving them out for free to all the hospitals and now to small businesses. And I asked them, "Are you doing construction?" They're like, "Well, no, not yet, but we see it coming. It's because it's it's not easy at all. Actually, they were talking to me about with 8 printers. They said it's like having a child in the next room and going, you go take care of that kid when it doesn't work, right? When you have to fix one of the printers." But basically, they said, they're able to sort of on more or less on demand print out these masks for people as needed, which is kind of neat that you can do that. Like, it's not. I think there are people making cloth masks too, obviously, and using low tech, but you can also use high tech, and that's what these guys are doing. And they were saying, I asked them, our construction companies, why can't they just go out and buy a printer to do this themselves? They're like, well, they can't find any. They're all sold out. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That is really cool. That is, and it's been interesting to see that, even though we cover construction, to see kind of the manufacturing sectors retool themselves, or people affiliated with that sector and technology, to kind of retool and just step up for healthcare, right? And step up as far as PPEs. That's pretty cool. So we'll have that coming up soon on the JOC side. Correct?
That one's up already. The Saskatchewan one is coming up soon.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. Good stuff. Now with us here, it's kind of more of the same. We've, as far as our COVID coverage on the DCN side, we've been attending a lot, and you have as well. Like a lot of these virtual seminars and summits, covering the full gamut of anything that's COVID-19 related, whether it's legal issues, whether it's health and safety issues, or just general practice or leadership issues. Everybody's taking a piece of that pie and using it virtually.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually getting to the point from an assigning point of view that it's kind of hard to choose which one, because everybody kind of makes a decent case when they present it to
riches
us.
With this stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it is, and it's almost like we just don't have enough time. Even with working from home, it's like somebody would have to sit there. You could for 8 hours in a day.
Well, I've done it. And,
just cover 2 or 3 of these.
I have the added problem that it's usually aimed at an Eastern audience, so it's 6 a.m. for me. So on the other hand, I use a room and I'm in my pajamas, so it's not a big deal.
It's a good trade-off, it totally is.
And speaking of
unrelated to this,
you may hear a cat at some point in this. She's a little older. So
yeah,
sorry.
Really? Okay. No problem. And in mine, you may hear a 5-year-old kind of cruising through the room as he goes to get his toys. So listeners, you're getting a bit more of an in-depth look at our family lives, really. So related to kind of the good stories and the use of virtual tools to get the connections out with people in the industry. We recently just launched, I'm trying to segue here into the fact that we launched our Instagram account that supports the Construction Record podcast. So for those of you that are in Instagram, all you got to do is just to search us, just type in The Construction Record, no spaces between all the words, all lowercase, just type that in the search, and you'll find our podcast account. And related to that poorly worded segue was the fact what I found is people are using Instagram to share these stories and share these type of initiatives, around these stuff, how they on a website, and I guess that medium is just a little different. The Twitter and Facebook and
it's
LinkedIn,
less nasty.
this is kind of
say.
yeah, and that what a welcome surprise, right? What a welcome experience, really. It's positive, and I've found as we've been managing this, the account and how we interact with people, that niceness is very evident when we mention somebody. Like, we have this post that we're going to do, that we do every week, which is called the Awesome 8, which is basically, as we sit and go through Instagram every day, any posts that we like, whether it's a cool photo, pardon me, or a cool initiative or a good piece of news, we're liking it, we're taking a screenshot. And then when we do the Awesome 8 near the end of the week, we roll them up, these 8 images, and share them with everybody. And, and kind of mention everybody in it. And that nice factor comes out. I know maybe it's just a part of good social media practice with Instagram, but in the 2 weeks we've done it, anytime we mention somebody, they thank us for the shout out right away. And then we also sometimes get into this dialogue about, thank you for doing what we do as far as the Construction Record or the Journal of Commerce or the DCN in covering the industry, right? So it's a nice ray of sunshine and positivity during a pandemic more than anything else. But we've come across some cool story leads. And I was mentioning to Warren just before we started recording, like when we posted the Awesome 8 today, one of them was from the account for LIUNA, Laborers International Union in North America, the American account. And they were, little did I know that their post was thanking one of their union brothers, who happens to be Colonel Robert L. Benkin, who's one of the astronauts that's going to be on the SpaceX flight this Saturday.
And just tangentially, can I just say that finally, into 2020, we have spacesuits that look like 2001. It took long.
Yes, it took long enough, but yes, great observation, actually. Yeah, and that's it's kind of neat. Like, it never would have known that, but here is LIUNA puts that up, and we liked it. But I don't want to get into a full tangent, but I am excited about this. You know what I mean? Like, I was actually on the couch with my son yesterday, and how disappointed he was, and even I was, when they had to scrub the flight.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, better they do that than something bad happens, but yeah.
Exactly. They got to do it. So I look forward to Saturday. Hopefully the launch happens Saturday, and if not, then it's Sunday, the next day after that. But it was good to see kind of a construction hook there. You know what I mean? I would have never known it if it wasn't for Instagram, quite frankly.
No
right? Yeah. But with the Awesome 8, we've seen some really cool stuff around like the Carpenters Ontario posting about the work they did to help build some of these field hospitals in Windsor in Ontario. Really neat images around that. We have companies like initiatives like Threads of Life.ca, thanking PCL for being their national sponsor right from the beginning, which is kind of cool. Some really neat posts around careers in construction. They're kind of well thought out. Build Together there in BC. They have some really great images and great a campaign out there in trying to attract women to the trades. And with our upcoming Women in Construction feature, this is definitely giving me some extra fodder as far as stuff to cover, which is kind of cool. And also the Lunchbox Challenge, remember that? Started out there.
Yeah.
We to kind of see the Lunchbox Challenge go from BC to here to Ontario and see the construction companies engage around that via Instagram was kind of neat as well, to see that kind of motivation. And I don't know, it's worthwhile. So if you're on Instagram, please give us a follow, give us a shout. Let us know, now that we're on this tool as well, about something cool we should possibly be writing about or covering. So we're hoping to make that connection between podcasts and Instagram. And I guess people get to see our ugly mugs once in a while on the Instagram.
I apologize.
Sorry for We apologize, but you get to put the face to these voices that we thank you so much to sit and listen through, every 2 weeks. Um, with that, I mean, going ahead, Warren, it's still kind of more of the same, right? Week to week
Yep.
coverage. With the podcast itself, we're probably going to be having some sponsored podcasts coming up soon. So there'll be podcasts that are off cycle from the regular 2 week episodes. So they're episodes that are actually been sponsored by a company or an association to cover off a certain topic or item they find important. So that's kind of a new frontier for us. With your podcast experience that you've had, this is kind of one of the things that we do, right?
Although I've never done that yet, actually.
Yes, yeah, but we've seen other people do it. So
oh yeah, of course.
We're excited about it, and we're open to any ideas anybody has. If there's a podcast they want to sponsor to cover an initiative, an event, by all means, let us know. We're at the point now, because of our footprints, people are finding it attractive as an idea to partner with us on that. So
we're all online anyway now, so those events are probably going to be online as well.
Yeah, exactly. The digital future is now, definitely, as far as we've always known that, but now as far as our publication, definitely is. So with that, I don't have much else. Do you have anything else to add for our listeners?
I'm all good for this week.
All right. So we thank you all again. Stay safe out there, and keep listening.
This episode of The Construction Record is brought to you by the Ontario Sewer and Water Main Construction Association. Clean water is everybody's business.